I'm Russ Reed. These are a series of talks I've given recently about the painting series, Encounter Gallery. In this first clip, I talk about why I paint, what I'm trying to accomplish, and the painting serving the 5,000. Thank you so much for coming tonight. What a wonderful welcome I've had at Monica Park, and thank you for the opportunity to show my work and talk to you tonight. Eddie asked me to talk about the paintings, about why I paint and why I painted this series and these specific paintings. So I've chosen three to look at in particular. So a little background. The first art museum show I ever went to, or that I can remember going to, was at Dallas Museum of Art when it was at Fair Park. Right? 1983, I saw the El Greco show there, and I was mesmerized. I was blown away. I love that Baroque period, those suffering saints, the historical narrative, the biblical narratives. I think of my paintings as new or neo-Baroque. So I started painting after that about 30 years ago. And this series started 20 years ago. In this series, I paint biblical stories and historical stories of the saints, as you can see all around you. These are stories that really resonate with me. And I use contemporary clothing, like Eddie said, because I want to bring these stories, these texts, into the immediacy of the now, right now. I want us to consider what it would be like if these stories happened now. My first subject I did, started 20 years ago, was the Jacob Wrestling with the Angels series. I did 6 of these paintings, and one of them is here tonight, over at your left. And so it's a lifetime of work. It's a work in progress. So the first painting I want to talk about tonight is the serving of the 5,000, the feeding of the 5,000. The story in Matthew 14 tells us a large crowd was following Jesus. The disciples suggested sending him home because it was getting late. They scraped together 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Not enough. But Jesus gave thanks, and he broke those loaves of bread. And about 5,000 men, plus women and children, were fed. So this painting came about because I was talking with my friend Takia. And I was looking about that time to branch out from the models I was currently using. I had worn out my family members. And as I was talking with Takia, I said, Takia, I've been painting these paintings, and I put them all up together, and I've shown them. And I'll tell you what I notice about these paintings. My family is awfully white. And she said back to me, well, Russ, my family is awfully black. And I like that. I said, Takia, I'd like to paint you in a painting. And I said, would you tell me about your story and which of the gospel stories, which narrative you connect with most? So she got quiet for a minute. She thought, and she said, well, first I want to tell you why. And so I'm going to repeat in her words why this is so important to Takia. We lived in a small one-room apartment in Hollywood, California, while I was 7 to 10 years old. I had no concept of God or Jesus. We weren't going to church regularly. It was me, my brother, my mom, her boyfriend, and he was the first father figure I had ever had in my life. He was nice, kind. He walked me to school, but he had gotten on drugs when we moved earlier from Denver before we went to Hollywood. And he was in and out of our house, and he was on the streets. Now, there was also this homeless man named Mike. He was a friend of the boyfriend. Now, my mom was a merciful person. She would let Mike in to take showers, to clean up. He was so dirty. That's how Takia put it. Remember, she's seeing this as a 7 or 8 year old. And he was dirty from laying in the street, in the gutter. Mom would let him in to take a shower and get a nap on the couch, and she would tell us, you have to be kind to people. Then she would scour the bathroom with bleach. Now, my mom was really struggling, catching the bus to work, working hard. One night, I was in the little one-room living room, and Mom was crying. She was breaking down. She was overwhelmed by grief. Mom cried, "We don't even have rice. We're starving." So she's in the living room screaming, and there's a knock at the door. It's Mike at the front door. And Mike says, "I've got food for you in this trash bag." And he had a black trash bag with him. It was filled with food, overflowing, meat, ground beef. And she said, not just crackers and peanut butter, real food. That was my first recognition that someone else was there. While they were going through the meat, the adults, I was watching, and I made my first conversation with the Lord. I knew someone was there. I had evidence. These were my first talks with the Lord. He showed up. I asked him, "Who are you?" He told me, "I'm here. I'm with you." The Lord showed himself to me out of the blue. So the story, Russ, that resonates with me is the feeding of the 5,000. God is so abundant. Even when you have nothing and everyone's hungry and starving and complaining and asking, what are we going to do? Just like my mom said. And Jesus showed up. He has always provided for us. He will provide. Miraculous things happen when we trust in Jesus. It never runs dry. And I was just amazed with her story. As I thought about Takia and I also meditated on this passage, I began to imagine what happened that day. As our Lord is multiplying fish and rolls by the tens, by the hundreds, by the thousands. Can you picture it? There must have been close to him helpers, servers, deacons, if you will, who saw what was happening, and they stepped up and they volunteered and they helped deliver all those fish and all those rolls from the podium, so to speak, out to all the people on the hillside. And I imagined Takia as one of those servers, delivering God's abundance. So one night, my wife Terry made this amazing meal of stuffed tilapia and homemade rolls. And I got pictures. And that's this meal. Another Sunday morning, I brought Takia a waitress's apron to church. And after the service, she held these 2 diner plates. And we took dozens of pictures. And it was so hard. You know, it's hard to be a waitress. It's hard to serve. But this is what we thought it might look like if this happened again today. And so that's the feeding of the 5,000.